Hello and welcome to the last video for Unit 1. It's BE, it's basically the whole of Learning Aim C. There are 3 learning aims, A, B and C, and this is the whole of Learning Aim C. Learning Aim C is the smallest. It's also got some stuff in it that we've covered in other videos beforehand, so I'm not going to go into that into too much depth. But it is about threats to data, so in other words, what can happen to your data. I've also just come back from holiday, so if I'm not quite as slick on my videos as usual, I'm trying to get back into it. I've also got my allergies, so I normally do these in one takes, but there could be a bit of a cut for sneeze breaks and that kind of stuff. But we'll see how we get on. So what are we going to cover? We're going to be looking at malicious damage and accidental damage. We're going to be looking at how you secure data that's being transmitted from one place to another. We're going to talk about how you keep stuff secure that's stored on your computer. We're going to be looking at how you do some backups and the recovery of data if you lose it. We're going to have a quick look at the dangers of social networking, but we've kind of done that before. Quick look at e-reputation, but we've sort of done that before. Quick look at the dangers of emails, but we've sort of done that before. Then we're going to look about monitoring position and communication of your employees or people. And we're going to be looking at data protection. Right, let's go. Malicious damage. So, malicious damage is when it's something that's been done on purpose. It's not that somebody's accidentally deleted something, it's that somebody has actually gone through and decided that they want to trash your work in some way. Now, it could be because you've got a disgruntled employee, somebody that's been sacked. I did work for a IT place at one time, and the head network manager was given the sack, and they needed to make sure that they got him out of the building very quickly and took away all of his access rights because they had a very sneaky suspicion that he was going to try and delete half of the network and trash it before he left because he didn't like the fact he'd been sacked. So that's one position where it might happen. Also the whole industrial espionage thing, trying to either break somebody's server so they can't get their work done, or steal information from people through sort of industrial espionage, hacking, that kind of stuff. And then also cyber terrorism, so people that are just going out there to cause hassle and to cause people problems. And it normally involves either hacking into somebody's information or planting a virus on their server, something along those lines. They're the most common ways. Obviously, you could just steal somebody's memory stick and jump up and down on it. That would also be malicious damage to their data, but generally, when we talk about this, it's going to be hacking and viruses. So people getting into somebody's network, stealing information, messing about with it, causing some damage, and then getting out again. So that's where we are for malicious damage. Accidental damage. So this is normally where either somebody's made a mistake or there's been something that's happened that's not really anybody's fault. So the kind of mistakes you could have, you could accidentally delete something. So you meant to push save, you pushed delete, you didn't save something when you were supposed to save something, those kind of things. It could be that you've overwritten something. I had to do a prospectus for a school at one time, and they asked me to redo some pages. I unfortunately saved the pages that I redid over the entire prospectus, so they had to kind of redo the file again. A bit embarrassing, but there we go. Also might be that you've lost something. A few years back they had seemed to be a big stream of people working for things like MI5 and that kind of stuff who were leaving their laptops on the train. Politicians are quite good at that as well, and their laptops had all sorts of sensitive data on them, so they were losing them. So that's another way that you can have your data messed about with by accident. Could just be that your equipment malfunctions. So if your main server crashes, or your computer crashes, or your memory stick has got corrupt, there are ways that you can lose data if you haven't got a backup of it through just no one's fault, it's just stopped working. The other ones you might have is you might have things like natural disasters. Probably not a twister, don't tend to get too many of them here, but flooding is quite a regular one. Obviously electronics and water don't get on very well. Earthquakes can cause a lot of problems as well, like sort of computers working, and also things like power interruption. So if you suddenly have a power cut, you might lose a load of your data, or it might damage the hard drives if your server's just been switched off quickly. Because of that, you have things like uninterrupted power supplies, which are basically big batteries that all of your network plugs into. So if the power goes down, it has enough battery life to be able to save everything and log everything off properly before the machine actually shuts down and loses power. So you've got some ways of getting around those, but accidental damage, like I say, it's normally mistakes or it's natural disasters. Right, keeping data secure that's being transmitted from one place to another. This is basically about intercepting data. So it goes from one person to another person, and they're going to try and intercept it on the way. Now, the best way of sorting that one is to encrypt your data. When you do encryption, basically what happens is you have your data, and then you do some kind of coding to it. And to be able to decode that, you need to have the code key for it. So in theory, what happens is only the person who's sending it and receiving it have the key, and then anything that's intercepted in between is in the encrypted form where it's been encoded, and it just makes no sense, and they can't get any information out of it. So, and it's not until it gets to the other side where the person has the key that they can then use to decode that information that it starts to make sense again. So that's basically what you're doing for encryption. You can also use firewalls, which are going to stop people from getting into your network in the first place. So, because you could be transmitting data, and before it goes out to the internet itself, when it goes through to your router and that kind of things, people might be monitoring that. If you've got a firewall, you can hopefully stop that happening, because it will stop people getting into your network in the first place. And then you've got some antivirus. Obviously, that's going to take out malicious software. A lot of hackers use viruses to plant, which means that they've then got backdoors into your security and that kind of stuff. So it will hopefully stop that from happening, as long as your virus stuff is up to date. So next one. Security integrity of data. So this is keeping data safe, normally data that's already stored on your network. So obviously, one of the best ways of doing that is to have passwords when you use stuff. So whether it's a password protected file, or if it's just your area that's been password protected, you should have a password, and as you know, the stronger the better. So make it a bit complicated. Doesn't have to be millions of characters long, doesn't have to be a complete load of gobbledygook. They're now saying some of the best passwords are just 3 random words. Like it might be fridge, cactus, baboon, or something like that. Type that in, no one's going to be guessing that, especially not with a brute force attack. So you should be fairly safe. If you want to be really, really safe, then you could put baboon and then one of the O's could be a 0, just to make things a little bit more annoying for people. But yeah, that's basically what people are recommending for passwords now. But the stronger the better, obviously. If you just have password 123, that's going to take about 2 seconds to crack. Probably not as long as 2 seconds. Next one, access levels. So you can set it so only certain people can see or change your files. We've talked about this before in previous videos. You can give people read access, or you can give people read and write access, so they can look at it, or they can look at it and change it. You can also give people full control, which means that they can look at it, they can change it, and they can delete it. But you can just pare it down so people can only look at things, or maybe they can't even look at something. And by doing that, it reduces the amount of people that are going to be able to mess about with your data, and it stops people from making mistakes that don't know what they're doing, hopefully. Last one, firewalls. As before, hopefully it's stopping people getting into your network in the first place, so they can't get to your data. And antivirus, as before, stopping people planting stuff in there to trash your files or to collect information about you. Right, backups and recovery. So a backup, as I'm sure you already know, is where you just save your information or the status of your system at a certain point. So you do some work, you save it somewhere else, you have a backup copy. So if your original copy goes and gets messed up, you've got the backup one you can go back to. Normally it's either going to be manual or scheduled. So a manual backup is where you set it to do it itself. You might just decide to copy all your work onto a memory stick. That would be a backup. You can also back up the PCs. You can set system restore points, which you'll be doing in your unit 14, I think it is. 14 or 11, I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, you'll be doing that with me at some time. Making a system restore point saves all the settings of your computer, so if the computer crashes, you can then restore it back to that point. So if you've done something to your computer that's messed it up, you can undo all those changes and bring it back to how it was. So you can do that manually, so just whenever you want it to, or you can schedule backups as well. I would imagine that the college has something along the lines of a scheduled backup that happens every day or every week, where it will save everybody's work and it will put it onto either another external hard drive or onto a tape drive or onto something that's separate from the main server. So if the main server goes bang, all of the information is there somewhere. When I worked at St Helena, they put everything onto tape drives and then put the tapes into a fireproof safe. So even if the whole place caught fire and the whole school burnt down, not a problem, because inside the fireproof safe is the tapes with all of your information on. You wouldn't have any computers to work on, but at least your information is safe. So that's another way to do it. So manual and scheduled. Manual, you do it whenever you want to. Scheduled, you set it to be done at a certain time or a certain date. So, places you can back up to, as you've already said, you can back it up to a device. So it could be an external hard drive, it could be a CD-ROM if you're not got an awful lot of information, it could be a memory stick, or it could be the cloud. You can be backing it up to the internet, where it should be relatively safe as far as things blowing up and catching on fire is concerned, but if it's on the internet there's a little bit more security risk, but depending on how secure the place is, you may be fine. That's another thing to think about. So those are the backups, and then recovery is just bringing everything back. So when you recover data, if you're doing it from a restore point, you're recovering your computer back to that restore point, and it will go back to how it used to be. If you're recovering data, hopefully it will just bring back the data that you've lost or has been corrupted and put it back on your machine. Where we've got undelete, if you go onto your computer and delete something from the hard drive, it doesn't actually delete the file, it just takes away all the little bits of information that tells the computer where the file starts and stops. So as long as you haven't saved something else over the top of it on that particular part of the hard drive, you can normally get it back if you use the right sort of software. So you can have recovery software or undelete software, and what that does is it will go through your hard drive, it will find things that have been recently deleted but are still on the hard drive, and it can bring them back. So that's another way that you can recover your data. Right, we've kind of covered this already in a previous video. I can't remember exactly which one it was. It's probably the internet one or something like that. But dangers of social networking, same as we've talked about before. It's cyberbullying, people being nasty to you online or using images of you online and messing about with them and putting them up in places you don't want them to be. People stalking you on Facebook and that kind of stuff. Trying to find out information about you, trying to find out where you live, trying to meet up with you when they're saying that they're a 16-year-old girl and they're actually a 40-year-old man, all that kind of stuff. All a bit nasty. Also identity theft. If you put enough information about yourself on Facebook, then people will be able to find stuff about you. They'll be able to look on that, maybe find out where you live, find out what you're interested in, that kind of stuff. And if they get enough, they can start to pretend that they're you as far as different companies are concerned, maybe getting information about you, using your information to buy things online, those kind of things. As I said, we've covered a bit more of this in a previous video, so just going to whiz past that one fairly quickly. Right, e-reputation. Can't remember if we have covered this before, so I'm going to go through it now. E-reputation is what your presence is online, so what is online about you. Now that could be stuff that you've put on there, it could be stuff that other people put on there. It can be for either a person, so it could be one of you, or it could be for a company. And it can be, like I say, it can be stuff that you've written about yourself or you've put about yourself online. It can also be about what other people have said about you online. There's one for, where are we? Yeah, United Airlines. United Airlines are a reasonably large-sized airline company in America, and they're not always very careful with people's luggage, it would seem. There was a band guy called Daniel Carroll, something like that, David Carroll, something like that. But he's a country and western singer, and he was going from one place to another on United Airlines, and then they suddenly said, oh, look out the window, and they could see the baggage handlers just throwing his guitar into the back of the hold, and when it got to the other end, it was trashed, and he spoke to United Airlines, and they basically said, can't do anything about it. So he made a song called United Breaks Guitars, and it went viral, and because of that, they lost a couple of million in revenue just because of the bad press they were getting from this video. So that's something where their e-reputation was damaged by somebody's video they decided to write about after their bad experience with them. So it can affect businesses. It can also affect particular people. So for instance, if you're going for a job, it's not unusual now for people to Google you and look you up on Facebook to see if they can find you. And if you've got pictures of getting absolutely hammered and being out on your face and throwing up on the pavement in Colchester High Street, then that's going to put a little bit of a damper on your interview. So it's worthwhile thinking about what you've actually got online and what you want online. And it's not necessarily just stuff that you might post online, it's stuff that other people might post online as well. So you might be very careful about what you put up on Facebook, but if one of your mates puts up an embarrassing photo on Facebook and that comes up, because people can search for pictures of you, it doesn't have to be from your own account, then that can reflect badly on you as well. So that's something that's worthwhile thinking about. There are companies now that will manage your e-reputation for you, and if stuff comes up about you, they will try and bury it further down the search engine thing. So if somebody searches for it, it's not going to come up on the first page at the top, it's going to come down on page 4 or 5 or something like that. There was a saying that one person came up with, where's the best place to hide a dead body? On the 3rd page of the Google search, because nobody ever looks there. So they just shove it further down the searches so people aren't going to bother to go through all the different things to look for it. If you search me, and don't bother, it's not really worth it. The only thing you'll find under John Jessup, when I checked yesterday, is there's some news anchor guy in America who works for the Christian Broadcast Network. So there's quite a lot about him, nothing about me, thankfully, which is nice, so I quite like it that way. So that's your e-reputation. What it looks like you are online, what your image is online, which can affect either a business if you're a business, or it can affect you individually if you're going for something like an interview and there's some dodgy stuff on there about you. We do have people from the Level 3 course that are interested in cyber security that might end up working for the security services, and we get people that will come in and interview us as tutors to find out what sort of person they are, and you can bet that they are going to be all over your Facebook. So if you ever want a job like that, make sure you've just got decent stuff on there, because you don't want anything else. Okay, so next one. Dangers of email. We have talked about this before as well, so once again I'll just whiz through it fairly quickly. You can get viruses on email. Viruses over email is probably the most common way of catching your virus. Remember, don't open stuff from people you don't know, don't open attachments that you don't know, all that kind of stuff. But it's all common sense, and we've talked about it before. Phishing, that's where people pretend to be somebody else, like Lloyds Bank, wanting your information when they're not Lloyds Bank, it's somebody else, so look out for that one. And identity theft, once again, people that are phishing, trying to get your information, your credit card numbers, that kind of stuff. They can then pretend that they're you and buy stuff on Amazon or wherever they're going to buy it from, and get you charged for it. So, as it says, this is all covered in a previous video as well. I quite like the picture here, Mr. Cyber Terrorist, who obviously does everything by Skype, so he has to wear a balaclava, but he always likes being smart as well, so he's got his nice shiny tie on as well. Nice photo, I thought. So that's dangers of email. I think there's only 1 or 2 left. So, monitoring position and communication. As you probably know, because most of your phones have got it, GPS, or the Global Positioning System, uses satellites, and it can track your movements to within a couple of meters wherever you happen to be in the world, which is very useful when you're doing things like navigation. It can also be used to track business vehicles and personnel. So, for instance, if you're a delivery driver, you'll be using GPS to get to your different deliveries. Your company may also well be tracking your progress to see where you are, how far you've got, and that kind of stuff. Then also if your delivery truck gets stolen, they have the tracker on it, they can get hold of it, they can send the location of it to the police and get it back. So they can be tracking vehicles, they can also be tracking personnel. If you've got GPS on your phone, they may have a tracker built into there to make sure you're in the right place, or you've gone to the right thing and you're not deciding to walk into one of their competitors' offices and give them all of their secrets, and also making sure that you're not stopping off for a cup of tea at home for 2 hours in the middle of the day when you're supposed to be working, those kind of things. They can also check your email. If a company has produced or provided you with an email address, they have every right to monitor what's on there, in the same way that the college has every right to monitor your college email account. We've given it to you, we reserve the right to be able to look at that if we think we need to. 99.9% of the time, we don't. But if someone's been sent a abusive email from someone else and it's come from somebody's college account, we have every right to look into that if we need to. Also phone tracking, you can check the calls that people are making. Obviously if you've got a business phone, you should only be using it for business purposes unless you've been given permission otherwise, in which case they're going to be looking at what phone calls you're making and if you're using the phone and office time for doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing. They'll also track things like your internet usage. Once again, if a business gives you internet, they have every right to look at what pages you're on. So if you're spending the whole day on Facebook and you're not getting any work done, they can look that up and see what you're doing. But it's used for several reasons. So it can be used for safety, making sure that people are in the right place. If somebody goes missing, they know where they are. They can make sure they're not going into anywhere that's dodgy. Security as well, same sort of thing. So just keep an eye monitoring where all your people are. If you've got people that work outside of the office and have to go to different people's places and they suddenly end up somewhere where you don't expect them to be, then you want to know why. Because is it because they're messing about and going for a cup of tea with a mate, or is it because something's gone wrong and they've ended up in the wrong place because they've got the wrong information, or have they been kidnapped? Who knows? It could be any of those things. And also you can keep an eye on your staff, make sure they're doing what they should be doing as well. So that's monitoring your position with GPS and communications through email, internet, phone, that kind of stuff. Last one, and it's a bit of a biggie, but it's the last one of Unit 1. This is the last thing we need to talk about. Data Protection Act. So, the Data Protection Act is a UK law that came out in 1998. The whole point of the law is to make sure that any personal information that somebody stores about you, whether it's generally it's on a computer, but even if it's in like a organised filing cabinet, something like that, that data needs to be kept safe. And nobody should be getting their hands on that data who shouldn't have it. And nobody should be having more information on you than they need. So it's just protecting your personal data from other people. It also stops people collecting information that they don't need, or collecting information without permission. Well, it doesn't stop them, but if they do it, they can be prosecuted for it. So these are the rules of the Data Protection Act. There's about 8 of them, I think. So, number 1, it must be collected and used fairly and within the law. So the law is the rest of the stuff, and fairly, obviously, that's just a legal term, so you know somebody hasn't got it in any kind of underhand way. Next one, it can only be used for the reason given. So if, and I'll use Amazon as an example because I use Amazon all the time, Amazon need to have my address, otherwise they can't send things to me. Amazon need to have my bank details, or they can't get me to pay for stuff. Amazon do not need to know what car I drive. They do not need to know what job I have. So if they were asking me those questions, they have no reason for knowing that. They might need to know what my date of birth is, depending on what I'm buying. But other than that, that's pretty much all the information they need. So they won't hold any more information on me about that unless I give them permission. And they're not allowed to say, you must give us this information, because they don't need it. In fact, that one is more for, I've got that the wrong way around, that is probably the adequate, relevant and not excessive. The only use for the reason given is if I give them all this information, so So they've got my bank details, they've got my address. They're allowed to use that so they can send me stuff that I bought. They're not allowed to use that to give to some double glazing company who are then going to come round to my house and say, oh, would you like some double glazing? No, thank you very much. So they can only use it for the reason they're given, so they can't use it for anything else. It needs to be adequate, so in other words, enough information to let them do what they need to do. It needs to be relevant, so once again, everything that they need, but nothing else, and not excessive. So that's the whole thing where you can't have any more information than you need. They're not allowed to store information on you unless you've given them permission if it's not relevant for the purpose that they need it for. You also can't pass it on to anybody else without permission. So that goes back to the people in the double glazing thing. Amazon can't give my information to anybody else unless I've given them permission to. So that's the bit when you sign up for things where it says, oh, we sometimes share your information with some of our partners. Would you like us to do this? And you go, no, thank you very much. If you do put no, then they can't do it legally. If you don't put no, or you do put yes, because they're a bit sneaky, sometimes they have a box you have to tick if you don't want it. Sometimes you have to have a box that you tick if you do want it. You have to read it very carefully, make sure you've got the right bit, because sometimes they have one of each, so they get you on one of them. If you haven't given them permission, then they can't put that information on. They can't give it to anybody else. That's the law. They're not allowed to keep it any longer than necessary. So depending on what they're using it for, Amazon will probably keep my details for quite a while because I use them on a regular basis. If you were working for a company or you were signed up to some business at some time and then you decided to end your membership with them, they might keep your details for a couple of years in case you decide to come back, but then after that they should probably be getting rid of it. So you don't hold information forever. When you leave college, a few years after you've left, probably all of your records will be deleted and we won't have any more information about it. Needs to be accurate, up to date, so you need to try as hard as you can, as far as business is concerned, to get accurate information and make sure it's up to date. So that's why you'll often get emails from people saying, oh, these are your details, are they up to date? Can you let us know? Any changes in your address, please let us know, that kind of stuff. So if they've made an effort to try and keep everything up to date, then that's up to them. As far as accuracy is concerned, if you've typed it in yourself and you've typed it in wrong, that's not their fault, that's your fault. So you can't really complain about that. But they will try and make sure that it's as accurate as possible. And they do have the little validation things to make sure that you've generally typed things incorrectly. So if you've typed in your email address wrong and it's not a proper email address, it will often come up with an error. So that will kind of help with those things. Sorry about the jump there, my camera just died. So we were on keeping it safe and secure. So if you've got information, the company that's holding your information has to make every effort to keep it safe and secure. Doesn't mean to say that people won't be able to break in, but if they've shown they've made every effort to make sure that they can't, then they won't be prosecuted. So if you've got stuff that you're keeping information on someone that's in a filing cabinet, then you put that filing cabinet, make sure it's got a lock on it, you make sure the filing cabinet's in a locked room that only people that have authorization to go into that room are going to be able to get into. You've got it on a computer, you have it in a secure place behind a firewall, you close down the access rights so only certain people will be able to see it, you make sure it's encrypted, that kind of stuff. Tiscali managed to get hacked a couple of years ago. My information from them got stolen. I did get some dodgy scam calls later on, people trying to get into my Tiscali account and take money out for me, but they didn't get away with that. But because Tiscali made every effort to keep it safe at the time, kind of, and they also kept everybody up to date with what was going on, they got away with that and there was no major problem. And the last one is to not transfer the information out of the European Economic Area. That's basically the EU and a couple of Eastern European countries as well. post-Brexit, who knows? I would assume that would be the UK and the EU and a couple other things, but I don't know. I'm not a politics person. But basically, you're not allowed to transfer it out of the EU, which is the main important thing. They do that because if you sent it to somewhere that has different laws, for instance, I don't know what the laws are in China, they're stereotypically not the most privacy conscious government out there, so it could be that you could send all of the person's information to China, where all the rules are different, you can do what you like over in China, and then they can send the information back afterwards. So this is stopping you from doing that. So, that is Data Protection Act. These kind of questions often come up in the long answer questions in the exam, so it's good to know some of these. It'll be things like, oh, how would somebody be expected to keep something safe, or is this against the law, or what would people need to do to make sure they were within the law when they're holding people's information. So just make sure you've got a few of these. Good way of remembering them, to be honest, is just think, okay, well, if I want to steal someone's information, what would I do, and what would they need to stop me? And most of these things are stopping you from doing those things, because that's what they're designed to do. So it might jog your memory a bit more to think of it that way. So that's the lot. That's it for Data Protection Act. That's it for Unit 1. So hopefully those will be useful, and you'll be looking at these before you do your exams, and they'll get you a few extra marks just to get those extra grades up. And if I make any more videos, they'll probably be on Unit 2. I will see you later.